In a world where fear silently shapes our lives, holding us back from taking risks, pursuing our dreams, speaking our truth, and living fully, what if I told you that fear isn't the obstacle standing in your way, but actually the key to unlocking your greatest potential? What if the very thing you've been avoiding, the thing that fills you with anxiety and doubt, holds the power to completely transform your life? Today, I'm going to share 8 profound lessons rooted in Buddhist wisdom, timeless teachings that will help you not only understand fear, but also face it with clarity and purpose. These lessons will show you how to use fear as a tool for growth, courage, and inner peace. This is your chance to see fear not as something to escape, but as a gateway to the life you've always dreamed of, a life filled with strength, resilience, and freedom. Are you ready to begin this journey of transformation? Lesson 1. Fear is a shadow, not reality. Imagine you're walking through a quiet forest at night. The moonlight filters through the trees, casting shadows that seem to move with every breeze. In the distance, a shape catches your eye, and for a moment, your heart races. Your mind begins to fill in the gaps, creating images of something frightening, a wild animal or danger lurking in the dark. But as you approach, you realize that it's just a tree branch swaying gently in the wind. There was never anything to fear at all, only the illusion created by the shadows. Life is often like this. The fears that arise in our minds are rarely as dangerous as they seem. They are created by our thoughts, based on assumptions and endless what-ifs that have no basis in reality. When we let fear control us, we make these shadows seem real, when in truth, they're just passing illusions. The first step in overcoming fear is to observe it without judgment. Ask yourself, what is this fear really about? Is it something that will actually harm me, or is it just a story my mind is telling me? By questioning your fears, you begin to see them for what they truly are, temporary and harmless, fading away once you bring awareness to them. Lesson 2. Change is the law of life. Change is the one constant in life, yet we often fear it. We hold on tightly to what we know, fearing that stepping into the unknown will bring discomfort or loss. But think about nature. The seasons change without hesitation. Spring follows winter, and summer follows spring. The flowers bloom, wither, and make way for new growth. If the trees resisted autumn, refusing to let go of their leaves, they would be weighed down, unable to grow in the spring. As Buddha once said, everything that has a beginning has an ending. Make your peace with that, and all will be well. Change is the rhythm of life, not something to fear, but something to embrace. It's a natural part of our journey, and just like the seasons, it brings renewal and growth. When we resist change, we fight against the flow of life, and we make ourselves more anxious. But when we learn to flow with change, to let go when it's time, we make room for new opportunities and experiences. Remember, as Buddha also taught, the mind is everything. What you think, you become. When we view change with fear, it becomes a struggle. But when we accept it as part of life's flow, it transforms into a force for growth. Ask yourself, what is it that I am holding on to? What change am I resisting? Let go and allow yourself to grow in new directions. Life is always evolving, and so are you. Embrace change, for it is the path to transformation and greater peace. Lesson 3. Fear of failure is the path to mastery. Many of us are terrified of failure. We think of it as something to avoid at all costs, something that makes us less worthy or capable. But in Buddhism, failure isn't seen as something negative. In fact, it's a necessary part of the path to mastery. Buddha once said, "The way is not in the sky, the way is in the heart." This means that the true path to mastery is found within, and it is shaped by our willingness to learn from every experience, whether it's a success or a failure. Think of a child learning to walk. At first, they stumble and fall countless times, but each fall is a lesson. With each attempt, they grow stronger and more confident, until walking becomes second nature. The same principle applies to life. When we embrace failure as a teacher, rather than a defeat, we open ourselves to greater wisdom and growth. Buddha also taught, "There is no fear for one whose mind is not filled with desires." When we are free from the fear of failing, we are free to try, to learn, and to grow. Mastery comes not from avoiding failure, but from learning to rise again each time we fall, with a deeper understanding of our path. Ask yourself, what is the fear I have about failing? How can I reframe this fear to help me grow? Remember, failure is not the end. It is part of the process of becoming the best version of yourself. Every time you fail, you are one step closer to mastery. Lesson 4. Mindfulness dissolves fear. Fear often takes root when we are not fully present, when our minds race with what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. We imagine the future, dwelling on what could go wrong, or we regret the past, replaying mistakes and missed opportunities. In these moments, fear feels overwhelming, and we feel powerless. But the key to dissolving this fear lies in a simple yet powerful practice: mindfulness. Buddha taught, "Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment." This wisdom reminds us that fear only holds power when we project it into the future or anchor it in the past. When we return our attention to the present moment, when we truly observe what is happening around us right now, fear begins to lose its grip. The future isn't here yet, and the past is gone. The only reality is the present, and in the present, fear is often just a shadow of our imagination. Think about a time when you were anxious, perhaps before an important conversation or decision. Often, that fear was based on assumptions and what-ifs, not on what was actually happening. In these moments, mindfulness allows us to step back and ask, what is truly happening right now? With this awareness, fear no longer feels as real or as powerful. Buddha also said, "You cannot travel the path until you have become the path itself." This means that when we practice mindfulness, we become rooted in the present moment, and through that, we become more resilient to fear. Mindfulness helps us to not react impulsively to our fears, but to observe them with compassion, allowing them to pass by like clouds in the sky. The more we practice mindfulness, the more we see that fear doesn't need to control us. It is simply a feeling that can be understood and released. Ask yourself, how often do I find myself overwhelmed by thoughts of the future or regrets from the past? How can I bring myself back to the present moment? By focusing on the here and now, we take back our power. Fear fades, clarity arises, and we are free to move forward with peace and confidence. Lesson 5. Compassion is the antidote to fear. Fear often arises from a sense of isolation, when we believe we are alone in our struggles or that our fears set us apart from others. When we face challenges, we can feel as though no one understands us, and in that separation, fear becomes even more intense. But one of the most powerful antidotes to fear is compassion, both for ourselves and for others. Compassion has the power to soften the sharp edges of fear and create a space in which it can no longer dominate. Buddha taught, "May all beings be happy, may all beings be free from suffering." This prayer reminds us that we are not isolated in our fears. We are all connected by our shared experiences of joy, sorrow, pain, and growth. When we extend compassion to others, we recognize that we are not alone in our struggles. We are part of something larger, and by helping others, we heal ourselves. Compassion allows us to step out of the narrow space of our own fear and open up to a greater sense of belonging and peace. Think about a time when you were consumed by fear, perhaps before an important decision or during a difficult moment in your life. Now, recall a time when someone showed you kindness or understanding during that period. Perhaps it was just a simple word of encouragement or a gesture of support, but in that moment, you felt seen, heard, and less alone. Compassion has the power to calm even the most anxious minds and reassure the most fearful hearts. It reminds us that we are worthy of love, kindness, and support, no matter what we face. Buddha also said, "If you light a lamp for someone else, it will also brighten your path." Compassion is like this light. It not only helps others, but it also brightens our own journey. By offering kindness, understanding, and empathy, we diminish the power of fear. Compassion invites us to recognize that, in helping others, we are helping ourselves. The more we give, the more peace we receive in return. Ask yourself, how can I show more compassion to myself in moments of fear or self-doubt? How can I extend compassion to those around me, especially those who may be experiencing their own struggles? When we embody compassion, fear loses its hold over us. Instead, we cultivate peace, understanding, and love, both within ourselves and in our relationships with others. Compassion allows us to face our fears together, with strength and solidarity. Lesson 6. Facing fear is liberation. Fear has a way of weaving itself into the very fabric of our daily lives, quietly influencing our choices and actions. It convinces us that it is the voice of reason, whispering that we must avoid discomfort at all costs, that we must steer clear of anything that makes us uneasy. It convinces us that avoiding what we fear is the path to safety. Yet, in truth, the more we avoid fear, the more it controls us. The more we retreat from our fears, the stronger and more insistent they become, overshadowing our potential and keeping us from stepping into our fullest selves. But what if the very act of facing our fears was the key to true freedom? What if, by confronting the things we dread most, we could unlock a life of courage and liberation? Buddha wisely taught, "The only way to overcome fear is to face it directly." This teaching cuts through the illusions of avoidance and reveals the transformative power of confronting what frightens us. It's not that fear disappears once we face it, but rather we realize that it no longer has the power to control us. Fear can only thrive in the darkness of our minds, in the places where we do not question it, in the stories we tell ourselves about what might happen. But when we bring light to these fears by facing them, we see them for what they truly are: temporary, often exaggerated, and seldom as dangerous as we imagine. Consider the times when you have felt fear's grip on your life, maybe in a difficult conversation, a career change, or a new endeavor. The longer you let that fear grow in your mind, the more it becomes a barrier, blocking the path to your dreams. But when you take that first step, when you choose to act despite the fear, you realize that it was never as overwhelming as you had believed. Just like a mountain that appears insurmountable from afar, but is revealed to be manageable when you begin the climb, the fear begins to lose its power once you face it. Each step you take toward it weakens its hold on you, until you realize that the very thing you feared was never your true obstacle. Your fear of it was. Buddha's teachings remind us that what you think, you become. The thoughts we entertain about fear, our fears of failure, rejection, or the unknown, shape how we experience life. If we continue to allow these fearful thoughts to dominate our minds, we will remain stuck, paralyzed in inaction. But when we consciously choose to face fear and move forward, we reclaim our power. We move from being passive victims of fear to being active participants in our own lives. The moment we choose to face fear head-on, we take the first step toward our liberation. Think of fear as a shadow that follows you wherever you go. The more you run from it, the larger and more ominous it appears. But when you stop running, turn around and face it directly, you see that it is nothing more than a shadow, harmless and fleeting. The more you confront it, the less it looms over you. Fear begins to shrink, lose its grip, and fade into the background. Facing fear doesn't mean that fear will disappear forever. It means that we no longer let fear control the course of our lives. Fear loses its power when we choose to move through it. The key to liberation is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act in spite of it. It is the freedom to live authentically, to pursue our dreams, and to create the life we desire, even when fear is present. Buddha also said, "It is better to conquer yourself than to win 1,000 battles." In facing fear, we conquer not just the fear itself, but our inner resistance, our doubts, and the limitations we have placed upon ourselves. Each time we face a fear, we become stronger, more resilient, and more aware of our true power. We no longer shy away from life's challenges, but approach them with confidence, knowing that by stepping forward, we are stepping into our own greatness. Ask yourself, what fear have I been avoiding, and how is it controlling my life? What would happen if I faced it, no matter how daunting it feels? What could I accomplish if I stopped letting fear decide my actions? When we choose to face our fears, we liberate ourselves from their grasp. We unlock the path to courage, strength, and the life we are meant to live. Fear no longer dictates our decisions. We do. Lesson 7. Fear is a teacher, not an enemy. Fear often seems like the enemy. It grips us, paralyzes us, and creates an illusion that it is something to fight against, to eliminate from our lives. But what if we stopped seeing fear as a threat and began to view it as a teacher sent to guide us on our journey of self-discovery and growth? What if, instead of running from it, we could listen to it, understand its deeper message, and transform it into a source of strength? Buddha teaches us that fear is not an enemy, but a teacher of wisdom. This profound perspective invites us to reframe our relationship with fear. Fear is not some external force to be conquered, but an internal guide that reveals areas in our lives where we can grow. It highlights places where we are stuck, where we need to heal, and where we are being asked to become more courageous. Fear, in its rawness, teaches us where we are holding ourselves back, where we have yet to trust, or where we need to let go of old patterns that no longer serve us. Think about a time when fear held you back from taking a leap, whether it was pursuing a new opportunity, having a difficult conversation, or doing something out of your comfort zone. At first, it felt like a wall blocking your path. But if you took a moment to pause and reflect, you may have realized that fear wasn't just something to avoid. It was pointing you towards something deeper. Fear often arises from unresolved pain, old wounds, or limiting beliefs. When we take the time to examine it, we begin to understand that fear isn't a fixed condition. It's a message, showing us areas where we need healing or growth. Buddha encourages us to approach our fears with mindfulness. He said, "Be aware of the present moment, for it is the only time you have to transform yourself." Fear, in this context, becomes a tool for transformation. When we examine our fears with awareness, we gain insight into the root cause. Is it rooted in insecurity, past trauma, or an exaggerated sense of danger? What is this fear telling me about myself? As we observe our fear without judgment, we begin to shift our response. Rather than resisting or fighting it, we can ask, how can this fear lead me toward greater wisdom, understanding, and freedom? In Buddhism, fear is seen as a signal, a guide along our path. It shows us where we need to step into courage, where we must trust ourselves, and where we need to let go of our need for control. Fear pushes us to move beyond the edges of our comfort zones, to expand our minds, hearts, and lives in ways we never expected. It teaches us to embrace uncertainty and live with an open heart, trusting that each step we take is a step toward growth. When we allow fear to be our teacher, we no longer see it as a burden, but as a part of the human experience that is essential for our evolution. We learn that fear is not meant to hold us back, but to propel us forward, showing us where our true power lies. Fear leads us to places of great potential, unlocking the courage, wisdom, and resilience that reside within us. Consider fear like a compass, pointing us in directions we may not have otherwise considered. The more we resist it, the more we create resistance in our lives. But when we choose to lean into fear, to embrace it as a guide, we start to see it as an ally in our journey toward fulfillment. It becomes a force for good, one that drives us toward our highest potential, one that ultimately serves our well-being. Ask yourself, what is this fear teaching me right now? How can I use this fear to understand myself more deeply and to move forward with wisdom and clarity? Fear, when approached with mindfulness, becomes a catalyst for growth and transformation. It holds the power to help us overcome obstacles, heal old wounds, and ultimately unlock the life we were always meant to live. By embracing fear as a teacher, we free ourselves from its grip and step into the full expression of who we are meant to be. Lesson 8. Fear dissolves in the present moment. Fear often takes root in the past or the future. It lives in the what-ifs, the imagined scenarios of what could go wrong, or in the regrets of what has already happened. But the truth is, fear cannot exist in the present moment. It only exists in our minds, when we project our thoughts onto time and space. The key to dissolving fear is to ground ourselves in the present moment, to reconnect with the here and now, and to stop letting the past or the future dictate our emotions and actions. Buddha's teachings remind us that the present moment is all we ever truly have. He said, "Do not dwell in the past, do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment." In that single, profound teaching, Buddha shows us the power of presence. When we focus our attention on the present, when we embrace the now with full awareness, fear loses its power to control us. In the present moment, we find peace, clarity, and a deep sense of connection to ourselves and the world around us. Fear thrives when we focus on what might happen or what has already happened. When we dwell in the future, imagining the worst, or in the past, replaying old mistakes, fear becomes our reality. But when we bring our focus back to the present, to the breath we are taking right now, to the ground beneath our feet, we reconnect with our true nature. In the now, fear becomes an illusion, a passing cloud in the vast sky of awareness. When we live in the present moment, we begin to see that most of our fears are based on stories we've created in our minds. We might fear the outcome of a decision we have not yet made, or the consequences of an action we've yet to take. But when we slow down, breathe, and tune into the present, we realize that the future is not set in stone. We have the power to shape it with each conscious choice we make, right here, right now. Similarly, when we reflect on the past, we recognize that it no longer has the power to harm us unless we allow it to. The past is a collection of memories, and in the present moment, we have the freedom to choose how we respond to those memories. This wisdom is found in the practice of mindfulness, a central element of Buddhist teachings. When we are mindful, we bring our full attention to whatever is in front of us. Whether it's a conversation, a task, or simply sitting quietly, we approach each moment with awareness. By doing so, we train our minds to be present, to not get lost in the cycles of fear, worry, or regret. One simple way to practice this is by focusing on the breath. Each inhale and exhale brings us back to the here and now. When fear arises, return to the breath. Observe it without judgment, without the need to change it. Simply breathe, and you'll notice that the grip of fear begins to loosen. This simple act of returning to the present moment reminds us that we are not our fear. Fear is simply a passing feeling, one that loses its intensity when we stop feeding it with our thoughts about the past or future. In the present moment, we find peace. In the now, there is no fear. There is only the breath, the feeling of our feet on the earth, the warmth of the sun, the gentle movement of life. The more we live in the present, the less power fear has over us. We begin to experience life with a deeper sense of calm, clarity, and purpose, knowing that the only time we truly have is now. Ask yourself, what is the fear that I am carrying with me into the future or holding on to from the past? How can I bring myself back to the present moment and release that fear? The more we practice being present, the more we realize that fear can't exist in the here and now. It is only in our minds that fear has any power. By choosing to return to the present moment, we dissolve fear and experience the peace that lies at the heart of all things. As we close today's video, remember, fear isn't something to shy away from. It's a teacher, showing us where we can grow, heal, and discover our true strength. By facing our fears with mindfulness, we unlock the potential for a life of courage, peace, and wisdom. If these lessons resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with others on their own journey. And in the comments, let me know, what fear will you choose to face today? Thank you for being part of the Buddhism Pathways community. May your path be filled with self-awareness, compassion, and the strength to face whatever comes your way. Until next time, take care and keep walking the path of peace and growth.